Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Short Hops with manager Kevin Hooper. This week, Kevin joins us over the phone from Wichita, Kansas, where his club has just completed a four-game series with the Lincoln Salt Dogs. Later on this evening, the Wichita Wingnuts will be heading for Gary, Indiana, where the club will begin a series with the Railcats of Gary South Shore. For those of you who are new to the program, Short Hops gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Wichita Wingnuts skipper questions about the Wingnuts, American Association Baseball, baseball in general, or sports in general if you like. Or if you have questions or are looking for pearls of wisdom from the Wichita Wingnuts manager, Kevin is always happy to oblige. We want to thank Kevin once again for joining us this week, so let's get right to our program. Okay, so welcome back. We have some questions here for Kevin this week, and so let's begin with, there was a fan who watched a couple weekends ago where there was a game where Dustin Geiger had stepped on first base, but the umpire had ruled that he hadn't, and you came out to argue the call, or you didn't come out to argue the call, and the fan wanted to know if there is what is the decision process that goes on that says you're going to come out and voice your opinion with the umpire?
Usually my call on all that stuff is the reaction from my guys. I thought that guy wasn't for sure if he did touch it or not, and my second baseman and the rest of the infielders and my pitcher didn't react like he did. Usually my guys I'll be able to tell by their body language if the guy missed it or not. And what I got was he did come up short, so whether he thought he stepped on it or not. I have my guys back 100% on anything, but also as manager, you got to pick your spots. You can't just run out there every time to go argue a call, and especially me, I'm not that way. You got to pick your spots and have a conversation with the guy and just kind of go from there. So for me, it's kind of a feel thing from the rest of my guys on whether or not it was a blatant missed call or not.
What is it that you try to get across to an umpire when you do come out to argue?
I want an answer. I know Kevin Wynn, the head of umpires, in his yearly meeting, he has stated to me before, if Hoop comes out, he's wanting an answer, so you better be ready. I think that states it perfect. I'm looking for an answer. And I don't want, just a ho-hum reason or whatever. I want an answer of why you made the call and why you went the way you went. So, I have a hard time when I don't get an answer, or they kind of beat around the bush and can't give me an answer. That doesn't flow real well with me.
That makes perfect sense. Michael from Wichita would like to know, is it irritating to you when you've traded a pitcher and that person comes back to beat you?
I don't know if I'd say irritating. It's always a tough situation. It's a tough situation for everybody, especially being so close to the trade that we did, where Omar had just got traded and then we faced him 4 days later. That's just a tough spot for everyone. I was hoping he wasn't going to throw against us because that was going to be tough on him and it was going to be tough on our hitters because they become friends. And Omar's a special person. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy that we dearly love and wish him nothing but the best. And I'm hoping he threw another great game last night. I'm hoping I'm going to do my best to fight for him to get another opportunity at affiliated ball. And that's how all my guys are. Whether I have them for a week, 2 weeks, a year, 3 years, I'm always going to be fighting for them, giving them a chance to get to affiliated ball any way we can.
I'm curious, about a month into the season, what's your assessment of the team so far?
I feel like we're still pretty inconsistent offensively. Here we are 2 nights ago against Lincoln. It's a 0-0 game. I think we get one in the seventh or eighth on a pass ball, and we win the game. We win the game 1-0. And then yesterday we go 10 innings without scoring a run. So that's 19 straight innings of scoring 1 run, and that was on a pass ball. We're way better than that offensively, and we got to start making some adjustments. I got to start seeing some adjustments, and we got to get better. We got to get better all around offensively. We've pitched really well with our starting pitching. Our bullpen's been a little shaky in the 7th and 8th at times, but Navarro's is stellar when we can get to him in the 9th. So there's some good, and there's some things that we got to get better at. But like I said, we'll keep working. We'll keep making adjustments any way we can to make this the best team we can possibly make it.
I think it's no secret to anybody that you were not a particularly big fan of the international rule, and after having to play your first game in it yesterday, what was your impression of it at this point?
Yeah, nothing changes. Nothing changes, especially in a 0-0 game. I find that tough when you're just battling back and forth, trying to grind a run out and it's 0-0, where you just reward a team by standing the guy at second base to start an inning. That's not baseball to me. You can talk to me till you're blue in the face about saving our bullpen, doing all that. You're still not going to change my mind. I'm an old school guy. If we play 18 innings, we play 18 innings, and it's my job to manage those 18 innings. So, I think it's just, I don't know. I think that their deal was they wanted to make it interesting for the fans and shorten games and whatnot. But to be honest, when you're in the 11th inning, half the fans are probably gone. And if they're trying to shorten the game, it might tell us our rosters are maybe a little too small as it is. So I hope that this is a one-year deal, and that, because I don't think I found one manager that likes it. Of course, you got to deal with it. You come accustomed to it, but that doesn't mean you have to like it. Rules are the rules. It's what we're doing this year, and we'll go along with it for this year. But like I said, I hope this will be the only year we do it.
You mentioned about the fact that the team is struggling a little bit offensively, kind of a little bit inconsistent. And I used the word struggling, understanding that 14-8 most people would gladly take. But do you see your team as kind of struggling to put all the pieces together at one time?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Rob. I think that if we pitch well, we don't hit well that night. If we hit well, we seem to not pitch that well, and there end up being close games, vice versa. Some nights we'll pitch and hit well, we may not play defense well, which causes us some issues. But I feel like we just haven't put it all together. And I know everybody says 14-8. A lot of people would take that, but I'm not a complacent guy. I'm not just going to settle. And I feel like we've given 4 games away. So you do the math, you're possibly 18-4 if you finish out those games. So we can always get better. That's my mentality. My mentality is there's always places where we can get better, and that's why we continue to work. We're going to continue to work to get better night in and night out.
Stan from Oklahoma City would like to know if it's easier for you to manage when the other teams in your division are also having good seasons.
I don't know if it is easier or harder. It's probably harder because, you're trying to gain a gap in your division. The biggest amount of games that you can put in between yourself and the people chasing you, the better. So I think that might just make it tougher. I don't know if it has anything to do with manage. I don't think managing-wise it has anything to do with my philosophy. Managing-wise, whether a team's 1 game back or 10 games back, I'm going to manage the same way more often than not. But, it makes it more interesting, I would say, just because, it's a tight race in our division so far. I know the other two, it's a pretty wide margin, but ours is pretty tight, and I don't expect it to not be tight because we've got some good clubs in our division as always.
I'm not sure if this is where Stan is coming from, but in talking with you before, I always get the impression that when games are close or when divisions are tighter, the team seems to be more focused. Is that a correct assessment from you as well?
Well, I would hope not on our end of things. I would hope that we're focused night in and night out, and that's what we try to preach around here is we're going to worry about tomorrow night in Gary, and that's all we can worry about, and that's all we can focus on, and that's all we need to focus on. As hard as that is sometimes, we try to stay on top of that and get their mentality where they're just focused on that night and not worrying about what anybody else is doing. Because if we can do what we do, being the Wichita Wingnuts day in and day out, we won't have to worry about anybody else.
Mary from Hutchinson would like to know what you try to do to keep your team fresh as it gets hotter during the summertime.
Well, as you know, Rob, having 22 guys, it's tough because on your bench is maybe the backup catcher and a super utility guy. Sometimes we carry one guy on the bench and an extra pitcher. So if you have one guy on the bench, it's tough. I tell the guys you don't get days off in indie ball. I do the best I can to maybe rotate the DH and give them a day off of their legs. Also, I tell myself before every season I'll never forget what it was like to be a player. So we pick our spots with batting practice, especially when the dog days of summer come around. There'll be a lot of times where we just end up doing a show and go, as we call, where we might just flip in the cage and guys kind of get loose on their own, no BP on the field, and we just try to keep them fresh as we can throughout the summer.
What kind of things do you look for as the season is going along that says to you that it's time to take a pitcher out?
Well, that's just a feel thing, I think, from a manager. A lot of times the game will dictate that. Guy may have thrown 85 pitches and have 15 more innings, but you might like the matchup of the guy coming up to the plate. So I don't think there's anything set in stone. I think it just determines on the game flow or how things are going, and in my mind, kind of what you're wanting to do matchup-wise.
Tyler would like to know what was your funniest moment as a player.
I thought about that one. That's a tough one. I didn't really ever have any like crazy funny moments as a player. I got to play all 9 positions in AAA one year, and that was a blast. I know my whole team had fun with that. I don't know if you've ever seen Myron Noodleman. He's a comedian that goes around ballpark to ballpark, and when I played in King County in 2000, he lives around that area, so he was there a lot. So getting to dance with him in front of the dugout, doing little skits, that was always fun. In AAA Toledo, we always had a nice little dance routine as our pregame, getting loose in the dugout. So, but on the field, nothing too crazy. Just some of those side things that were awful funny and fun to be part of.
Did you play all 9 positions in a single game, or it was over an entire season?
No, it was in a single game. It was our last regular season game in Toledo one year, and it was pretty neat. Our guys had been on a manager to let me do it for a while, and he said he'd let me do it the last game of the year as long as it didn't mean anything for either team. We had already clinched a playoff spot in Indianapolis, had nothing to play for, so he went ahead and let me do it, and something I'll never forget, and people enjoy asking me about and talking about to this day.
I bet. That's a great story. Lewis from Garden City mentions that your team seems to play baseball a lot like the Kansas City Royals, and wants to know if you consider that a fair assessment.
Yeah, I would think so, especially last year, the way we ran sole bases. Our tail end bullpen has been very, very good. We're dealing with some soreness and injury bugs with Schumann and Corella right now, but if we can get those guys right, and you go Schumann, Corella to Navarez, that's very Kansas City-like from the power arms they had last year. And just the pressure they put on defenses, on the base pass, we like to do that a lot. And yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. We're very similar in the way that we go about our business, I believe.
We have a couple of questions from Mike from Kansas City. The first one is that with the draft just occurring, he was curious about what your own draft experience was like.
It's a day you'll never forget. You just sitting at home waiting for a phone to ring, and to get that phone call from your area scout who you had dealt with throughout the season, as you do all the area scouts who are always around you during that time, scouting you and getting to know you, filling out questionnaires, all that stuff, doing interviews with them. It's what a joy. That was my dream. My dream was to play professional baseball and to play in the major leagues, and that phone call was the beginning of all of it.
Mike is also curious, I'm assuming is a big Kansas City T-Bone fan, and asked if there's any way that you could take it easy on his team when you come there.
I'm going to have to pass on that one. I don't think that's an option for us. Sorry. But no, we always play good games with those guys, though. They always seem to, it's a nice little in-state rival for us. I wish we played them more often than we do. But they have a beautiful ballpark. It's just a great setup there. Great fans. They pack that place night in and night out. We're really looking forward to coming there next weekend and battling out with them, as I said. I know that they may be struggling a little bit, but that's no indication, I don't believe, of the team they have, and they'll compete against us. Should be some good matchups next weekend.
Ben is curious, with you being such a good teacher of the game, why hasn't a major league team, or at least more major league teams, come to take a look at you as being one of their coaches?
Well, they have. I've passed on multiple opportunities to go to affiliated ball. I don't think it's any secret. It's because of my children and the situation I have here at home. Being at home and being able to manage at home, I'm very blessed, very humbled, very fortunate to do what I do here in my hometown. I was a Wichita State Shocker and a big fan favorite while I was here in college, and it's just great to be back here and be part of this and be part of this Wingnuts organization where we're trying to build what we're trying to build. And I always say, I'm not going to worry about tomorrow, but affiliated ball is always an option down the road at some point. And if that right opportunity came up that we felt like as a family we couldn't pass on, then we'd probably take it.
Tim from Wichita would like to know, when you've been in slumps in your own career, what were some things that you tried to do to get out of them?
I think being in a slump typically is a lot how you are mentally, how you can respond mentally to having a bad game or having a bad run. And I say all the time, we're all going to have our 0 for 10s, 0 for 20s. You try to minimize them the best you can. But for me, it's an attitude thing. You got to stay positive. If you dwell on it and think, oh man, I've got to get a hit, I've got to get a hit, more than likely you're not going to get a hit. It's a game of failure, as I continue to talk about in our conversations, and it's how you respond to failure. It's a mentality thing. We're all going to struggle at the plate, like I said. But on the other side of things, when you're struggling at the plate, you need to not take it out defensively and go play good defense. Make a big play for your team. That's going to get everybody excited. That's going to get you excited, and hopefully get that positive feeling back as you step into that box. So for me, dealing with slumps is always a mentality thing for me. I always try to stay positive and still have confidence. As long as you can have confidence every time you step in that box, I always compare it to a one-on-one matchup. It's me against the guy on the mound, and who's it going to be? Who's going to win? And I always like my chances of winning that battle, and that's kind of how you have to be mentally.
Would you agree, Kevin, that part of being a successful ball player is saying to yourself, I'm going to have times where I'm really hot and I'm going to hit well, but that's not going to last forever, just like I'm going to get in slumps and that's not going to last forever either. So it's kind of being balanced about having great success or having a struggling period of time?
Absolutely. It's just like I talk about. I want those even-keeled guys. I want those steady eddies that are straight-line guys all the time. When he comes into the clubhouse every day, he takes the field every day, I know what I'm going to get out of him. Whether he's 4 for 4 or 0 for 4, it doesn't matter. He's the same guy. And that's what I strive for our guys to be. That's what I strive to be as a player, is that same guy. And just being real with yourself. Like you said, you're going to have great days or you're going to go on really good streaks. Then it all evens out and you're going to go on a bad streak at some point. So being even-keeled is a key factor to all of that, I believe.
Steve from Emporia is curious what you think about the unwritten rules of baseball, like never watching your home run too long or throwing at guys that have hit home runs. Don't those kind of things seem outdated to you?
No, I mean, I think that it's the history of baseball, and I don't think that that's going to go anywhere. I mean, that goes back, for me, it's just a respect thing for the game, I would say. We're not going to, and I tell all my guys in our first meeting, we're not going to show anybody up on the field, and it happens at times, and it's happened in the past, but it doesn't happen again. We have a conversation about it, whoever it happens with, and that's not how we do things here. We're going to respect the game. We're not going to pimp home runs, and there's stuff that has to be taken care of. You take care of your teammates, and but you don't ever want anybody getting hurt in this game and throwing at a guy on purpose just to throw at a guy because he did something. That's where it becomes a dangerous sport, and you can get some guys in trouble, and you're looking at suspension and stuff like that in that case. So we try to go about our business the right way where nothing like that ever happens. It's a big reason for me, like we talk about safety issues. You don't want anybody out there, as they say, headhunting somebody, because then you're just looking at a sticky situation all around.
We have a concerned mom that has a couple of questions based around injury, since you bring that up here. And you mentioned that you've had 2 daughters that are playing sports. So what are some kind of things that you do to protect your children from injuries?
I don't know if there's really a way. Baseball is not a contact sport. I had a concussion my junior year in college where I was doing just agilities out in left field, and they were taking live batting practice on the field, and we were doing drop backs, and I was going back for a ball, and the live guy in the cage hit a ball to our right fielder, and we collided. And I don't remember 4 hours of my life. I remember coming out of a CAT scan and seeing my coach, and I had a grade 3 concussion. I was very fortunate. Grade 4 would have been permanent brain damage, so I was very, very fortunate. And that was just a freak accident, and it happens, especially this day and age with all the concussion talk. I just think you got to be proactive and try to stay on top of things. Be as safe as you can be. Don't put yourself in those situations, even especially when you're practicing or not. But during the game, a lot of stuff happens that you can't control, so it's kind of out of your hands, and we don't ever want to take away from people playing the game hard and playing the game the right way, and being a spark on the base pass and running full speed with everything. But like I said, stuff that happens on a baseball field, concussion-wise, usually is because something crazy happened, and it's kind of a freak deal. But I think you can always try to be as cautious as you can when you're not in a game situation of just doing drills and stuff like that, where you look out for your safety and definitely the health of your children anytime you can.
Because of all the discussions around concussions, are there protocols in the International League Baseball as well? I'm sorry, Independent League, my apologies, Independent League Baseball that says if a person like gets bumped in the head or something, here's the things you have to follow to determine whether they stay in the game?
No, I think that's a team-to-team type deal. Obviously, if something like that happens, my trainer's going to check that guy out right away, and I'm going to be more cautious than I am letting the guy continue playing in the game. So, because that's stuff that, especially this day and age, you just don't mess with. And with my experience that I had with it, I couldn't pick anything up for 30 days. And, that's some serious stuff that you're dealing with in those situations. You never want to prolong anything that you can help. So in my situation, in our team, if something like that happened, we definitely get the guy out of the game. There's no standard set rule, though, of concussion protocol in our league that says anything about that. But for our team, like I said, it's probably just varies trainer to trainer, team to team.
I think it would be interesting for parents to get your expertise in this particular situation. If their child was to get hit in the head, bumped in the head in some way, what would be some suggestions you would give about what they should do to treat their son or daughter?
Well, my suggestion was to get your kid out of the game. If there's any question at all, I always say better safe than sorry. So, get your kid out of the game, get him off the field, get him to relax, get him to rest. And then I think if there's any question in behavior, how they're looking, how they're feeling, you got to go see a doctor. Because that's not something you mess with or something that you want to mess with. So as quick as you can, get in to see a doctor if that's the case, and that's my recommendation.
Excellent. Let's see where we're at here. Oh, here we go. So Manny would like to know, lots of coaches out there have come up with clever sayings or mottos for their teams and would like to know if you have your own cliches that you use as motivators or ways to teach your team.
I think the biggest one for us is fight like hell. That was Brian Rose. Brian Rose was our bench coach. If anybody doesn't know the story, Brian Rose was our bench coach and passed away a couple years back from melanoma and skin cancer. And 34 years old, I lost one of my staff members. And, it was a tough time for all of us. And he battled it for a couple of years there. And that was his motto. His motto throughout when he was fighting the cancer was fight like hell. And we kind of brought that on as a team. We actually, if you come in our clubhouse and walk out onto the field, we've got a big poster in memory of him, and it says fight like hell. Treat today like there's no tomorrow. And that's just kind of how we go about our business and how we always have here, and his jersey we retired. And it's hanging up in left center field every game that we play is number 3. And a guy that will never be forgotten throughout this organization. And, that's kind of been our motto for years now is fight like hell.
Excellent. Annie from Topeka would like to know, she explains that her son is terrible in algebra and wants to know if you're as good at teaching math as you are at coaching baseball.
That is a big negative. Math was a sore subject for me at times too. That's some tough stuff. I would have to give my edge to the baseball side of things as opposed to the math side of things. But my kids are getting a little older, and you're always messing with the homework, so it's kind of a refresher for me coming back with a lot of the kids' homework and stuff. So it's been fun going over a bunch of the math problems with them. But no, not even close. I'd say my baseball side definitely outweighs my math side.
That reminds me, too, that I wanted to mention here on the show that while Kevin is a phenomenally nice guy and is always interested in helping people, he will not be giving out his bank account for people to transfer large amounts of money from Nigeria to. So thank you for your emails on that, but that will not be occurring. Our last question for this week is that Devin would like to know who you believe is going to the World Series this year.
That's a tough one. Obviously growing up, I was a Cardinals fan, and Ozzie Smith was my guy. But what the Royals did last year was phenomenal for the Midwest. I always say phenomenal for baseball in general, just what they were capable of doing. So, I'm gonna say let's go Kansas City versus St. Louis in the World Series, and let's give the edge to Kansas City. Why not? Let's see if they can't continue the success and continue the run, and see if they can't win one. So, being a Midwest boy, I'll go with those two teams with Kansas City winning.
Just out of curiosity, with the Kansas City Royals getting a little bit of controversy with the AllStar Game. For those that don't know, 7 people so far winning.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that personally?
Yeah, I saw it the other day, and boy, that's a lot of members off of one team, But if they're going to open it up to voting and let the fans vote, and that's what it ends up being. I guess there's no way around it. So, but to not have a guy like Cabrera, leading at first base, that's just kind of a crazy situation in my eyes. But it is what it is. One of those things I say, it is what it is. And if they're going to open up for voting, and that's the way it's been voted for, then that's what's going to happen.
Excellent, Kevin.
Pretty neat for Kansas City, though. Pretty neat for Kansas City to have that many guys leading the vote getting. That's a neat deal for them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Kevin, for joining us this week.
Well, thanks as always. Look forward to next week.
All right. See you then. We'd like to thank Kevin Hooper for joining us here again on Short Hops this week. If you'd like to pose a question to the Wichita Wingnuts manager, please email us at askkevin@minorleaguesportsreport.com. Once again, that's askkevin@minorleaguesportsreport.com. Please have your questions to us by midnight Friday night so that we can give the skipper a couple of days to review the questions prior to us recording the show Monday morning. We want to thank you once again here for joining us this week. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor for the Minor League Sports Report, and we look